Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to BC Squared Outdoors. This is going to be kind of our first real video here. Today we're at Rice Lake Archery Park in the north end of Rice Lake. I'll do kind of an overview of it towards more the end of the video, shoot some content, stuff like that. But today I'm going to be taking you through my hunting setup for the fall of 2022. This is the first year I've bow hunted in the last 4 years. When I was in school, I went to school in Florida, played college golf, didn't really have time to hunt or come home. I got to do some rifle hunting, but I haven't really hunted in the last few years, so I'm excited for this upcoming season. And I really feel like I have fine-tuned kind of what I have, and it works really well for me. So to get started, I shoot a Hoyt Factor 30. I really like Hoyt's products. I kind of always have. I bought this bow back in 2015, and I really considered upgrading this year. I was really looking seriously at the Mathews VXR, but just kind of decided that I used it my sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school, and it just, to put the money into a new bow when this is only my 4th year shooting this bow wasn't really worth it to me. I had some money I needed to spend on stands, food plots, habitat improvement for some of my land. So I just decided to drop, $1,000, $1,500 on a new bow. Wasn't really worth it to me. I shoot 60 pounds, 27.5-inch draw length. That setup works well for me. I'd really like to switch to 70 pounds, but when I bought this, that's kind of all they had, and it was getting to be the end of the summer for that year, and I needed something. I was going on a trip to Kansas. Obviously needed a bow for that. So I haven't really seen any downfalls with it. I'd like to get that arrow to shoot a little flatter, especially out at 40 yards, but that's definitely going to be something that I upgrade to next year. As far as specs on the bow, I shoot just a standard 3-pin sight, Hoyt sight. I looked into kind of the 1-pin adjustables for the year, and I really like them. At some point that's going to be what I switch to, but I've seen too many of the horror stories of, you have a deer, you have your pin set to 35 yards, you think the deer's going to walk through perfect, and then he cuts and comes into 20, and you forget to switch the pin and you shoot right over his back, or you make a bad shot. I just didn't really feel like that was another element I needed to throw in this year, so I like what I've got. I have pins set at 20, 30, and 40 yards. I don't shoot past 40 yards unless it's in practice. So I didn't really see the reason to switch. I'm not doing any trips out west where I'm shooting long distances or anything like that. So I kind of just stuck with what I had. I shoot a QAD drop away arrow rest, if you can see it there. I really like this product. It's been good to me. I feel like it's kind of the only way to go for an arrow rest. QAD makes really good products, so I just stuck with that. And then I upgraded actually this year to the Bee Stinger Micro Hex 8-inch stabilizer. In years past, I had a Tacticam. If any of you are familiar with what that is, it's just kind of a long cylinder camera that mounts in the front of your bow. So they made a stabilizer mount for it, and I had used that, and it didn't really give you the stabilization or the dampening effect that a conventional stabilizer does. So switching to the that 8-inch stabilizer has really helped me. It helps stabilize the bow, and I feel like it's made a big difference in quieting kind of the setup that I have. So it's been good. I definitely would recommend it for the 70 or 80 bucks that it costs. And yeah, so as far as arrows go, my arrow just fell off the table here. But I shoot Easton Access, just typical 5mm arrows. They're 28.5 inches long, 340 spine. So at that length, that's about 9.5 grains per inch. That's a good balanced setup for what I shoot. Oh, excuse me. So let's get into my arrows here. I shoot Easton Access, typical 5mm arrows. Nothing crazy about them. I really like them. They've been a good arrow for me. I have 340 spines, which is 9.5 grains per inch. that's a pretty balanced setup as far as speed and weight goes for the poundage that I shoot. They've been good. I've had no problems with flight or anything like that with these arrows, penetration, anything like that. If we move to broadheads here, I shoot Muzzy Trocar 100 grains with just a standard insert in them. I toyed around with switching. When I first bought this bow, I shot G5 Montex, which I have here, and I really like the design of these, but there were a few things that I felt like they were lacking. I've never had my bow bare shaft tuned, which is probably not a good thing. That's probably something I need to do, and that's probably the reason for this. But I didn't feel like they flew as consistent as I wanted, and I felt like they were pretty dull out of the package. I've never really screwed with arrow or broadhead sharpening either, so I didn't really like that. It's pretty vital to have a sharp broadhead, so that was kind of the reason I switched. I switched to these Muzzy Trocars. They've always flown great out of my bow. I like the sleek design. They're sharp out of the package. I like that chisel tip that they put on the front. And so I just kind of stuck with them. This year I switched for a brief period of time. Guy at Shields talked me into the QAD Exodus broadheads. You see them here. This one's pretty dirty and beat up. And I really like these, but I couldn't get them to fly good out of my bow. I've done a lot of research on them, watched a lot of product reviews. The wound channel's great, the cutting diameter is great, the durability test is unbelievable for these. The penetration test is pretty good for a 1 1/4 inch fixed blade broadhead. But I couldn't get them to fly right out of my bow. That's not really a rip on the product, because again, like if I bare shaft tuned my bow, they'd probably fly a lot better. So I ended up just going back to the Muzzy Trocars. I feel like broadheads are kind of a rabbit hole that you can go down that isn't really necessary. As long as you have a sharp broadhead that shoots good out of your bow, if you make a proper shot, you're gonna kill that deer. So I just went back to the Muzzy Trocars because they work well for me. Another thing I switched this year was I used to shoot these nocturnal lighted nocks. And again, they're a great product, but for the poundage I'm shooting, I don't shoot a super heavy like broadhead or anything like that. And if you know anything about arrows, FOC is very important. What that is the front of center of the arrow. So if I have this arrow and there's no fletchings on it, no broadhead, no insert, and no knock, the center point, the gravity center point is right in the middle of the arrow. When you're shooting, especially for hunting, you want that weight to be as close to the front of the center as you can. And so these knocks are actually heavier than a traditional knock. So it kind of moved that it added weight to the arrow, which I liked, but it moved that FOC back. And I felt like that wasn't necessarily a good thing for what I was shooting. And they're kind of expensive. I mean, it's like 20 bucks for a 3-pack, and all the ones I had were out of, the batteries were dead on. So I would have needed to buy some new ones. And like I said, not that I like cutting corners, but I just didn't really want to spend the money and didn't really feel that they were necessary. Especially with filming, it's going to be easy to look back and see kind of the shots that I made on a deer. So I feel like they're not as necessary as they maybe would have been in the past. Other small specs, I shoot a fuse release. What I really like about this, I just switched to this year actually. There's only a little bit of metal on there. So what I ran into in years past is like if I was sitting in my stand, I might bang my metal release on the edge of the stand, and that pretty much ruins your hunt. It's pretty easy to do. This thing's pretty small and sleek, and this part is just like a fabric material. So it was definitely worth the upgrade. And then quiver, I just have a fuse, pretty basic quiver. That's one thing I kind of refuse to spend a lot of money on, just because all it really does is hold your arrows, and I don't shoot my bow with mine on anyways. So that's kind of what I got here. I'm excited to use it this fall. Like I said, this bow's been good to me, and so the rest of the video is just going to be kind of an overview of the archery park and a few arrows flying. So enjoy. So this is the beautiful Rice Lake Archery Park. You can see there's a bunch of targets out here. They've built a nice deck here so that you're kind of sheltered, and then over here actually you can see this is a deck that you can go up on and shoot from an elevated position. They have targets all the way out. Let me see if I can get it here. This back target, I believe, is 90 yards from back here. There's a good mixture of 3D targets, hay bale targets. There's a bear there. There's this little gremlin thing here. There's a deer around here somewhere. Coyote over here. And then there's some turkeys as well. And then over here they have some stands so that you can shoot from an elevated position, both right and left-handed, and then straight on. And then they even have a blind over here so that if you do a lot of ground blind hunting, you can get some practice shooting through some windows from a seated position, whatever it might be. So let's shoot some arrows and see how things are flying. All right, so we got towed back there at 30 yards. One thing I forgot to mention, just about kind of the way I shoot, I try to sight in like a ½ an inch low. I mean, that's pretty close to right on, but there's a couple reasons for that. The first is being just that there's a lot more low in an animal than there is high. If you hit high, you're kind of screwed. If you hit low, you still have a chance of finding that animal. That's where the heart is, as well as some other vital organs. And then the other thing is 95% of the time I hunt out of a tree stand, and when you're elevated, that actually makes that arrow, that yardage, a little shorter than what it really is. So sighting in just a smidge low kind of offsets that. I mean, like I said, I'm pretty close to dead on. It's not like I'm sighting it 2 inches low or anything. But just another little tip for you guys, something that I've kind of found that helps, because you don't want to hit a deer high. So there we are, there's 30 yards. As you can see, that's pretty much about dead on, and maybe just about a ½ an inch low, like I said. So